how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
To infinity and beyond!
Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking, don't they?
It's classified.
You talking to me?
I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you.
I can't lie!
Expecto Patronum!
Entertainment X.
You never know what you're going to get.
For this episode, I get to chat with Stephanie Cowan. Stephanie is a social media strategist, and we cover a lot. We talk about her life path from musical theater to social media strategy and the permission she's given herself to create this company and what she has learned about social media. This is really, really a great episode for anyone who is looking to improve their I wanted to say status. That's not quite the right word. Presence on social media, particularly Instagram. I know all of us have different feelings towards the social web, and I really, really, really think this episode, this conversation with Stephanie kind of strips away a lot of the bias that I know I carried prior to the conversation. So I hope that you get some takeaways from this wonderfully wide-ranging conversation, and if nothing else, enjoy it. So keep on keeping on. We're back. I'm Clayton Howe, and today with me is Stephanie Cowan.
Hello.
Stephanie, thank you for having me up here to chat with you today.
Of course. You are technically sitting in my living room, but it also doubles as my photo studio. So welcome to my office.
It's a gorgeous photo studio, I do have
you.
to say. So I came across you via Sarah Ruth Ellis. I always got to give a shout out to the people who connect people together. Now, and I was, what I found from your social media presence, let's get right into it, shall we, is that you really have a wonderful understanding of brand, posting, aesthetic, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I really want to spend this time talking about how you got into that and what you've learned about it.
Right.
So how did it happen? How did the blonde with the smile become you?
Right. So actually, I was an actress. I started as an actress. I went to school for musical theater at Penn State. We are. And then once I graduated college, I moved right to the city. I was working at the front desk of Equinox, doing greeting people, basically. And I was making $8 an hour.
I've done that.
We all have, right? It's like an actor's rite of passage in New York.
I know, a free gym membership though.
Right? Right, but it's also like they make you you can only work out at a specific time.
Yeah, the blackout dates.
The blackout times. You're telling me that's every hour.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, so
Sunday at 11 p.m. until 11:15.
Right. And then you have to leave. Thank you.
Exactly.
But like enjoy the sauna.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Like stealing Kiehl's products. Just kidding. But $8 an hour. I was working there and I was doing the regional situation. I got a job at Westchester Broadway Theater right after school with Sarah, actually. And I was making $350 a week, and we crunched the numbers because we were living in New York and traveling back and forth. We crunched the numbers, and I was making 37 cents an hour as a professional actress. You know, I also, side note, I love Westchester Broadway Theater. It's an amazing experience, but that's more of a comment on all of the whole of theater and the way that we are paid. So I ended up doing a few other jobs. I got my equity card down at Flat Rock Playhouse, and I ultimately ended up working on a cruise ship. And when I was on the cruise ship, we were going to all of these like really dreamy places. And I had my Canon Rebel, my like little dinky Canon. It's kind of like,
that model.
Oh, everybody loves it.
Yeah.
Everybody has it.
Yeah.
It's like baby's first camera. It's an amazing camera. So I was there and I was on the ship, and unfortunately there were only 6 people total, including me, that were performers. So it was a very tiny ship. And basically we would be in these like glamorous places, and I would like beat my roommate up, and I would put makeup on her face, and I would take her out to Alaska, and I would make her do a photo shoot. And it's funny because like we're very close now, but she was always like, I don't want to put on makeup. And I'd be like, we have to do something here. Like there's, we're in Alaska for 3 months. Like
We got to get a photo.
yes, we have to like, and I ended up, it's so funny. I look back at those images and I was like, wow, that was definitely the start of this, that was definitely the start of it. And I had no idea.
What was the time frame on all of this from that first gig to
yeah,
the
so
ship?
that it was probably I think 2 years. So 2 years from graduating to getting on the cruise ship.
Yeah.
And then it is now my 3rd anniversary of the cruise ship.
Yes,
So
it is.
we left in February of 2016. Yeah.
Okay. 2000. Okay. So you're
yes.
doing these photos in Alaska.
Right.
Are you getting advice, tips, tricks, hints, any of this?
No.
on
So what I
photography?
was doing was I was basically, we didn't have Wi-Fi on the ship. Like, I mean, we did. We had to pay for it. So it was like $40 for like 300 megabytes, which to give a term of that, it's each time an Instagram photo loads, it's 3 megabytes. So you're like, going through it quickly. Like, forget doing a video or FaceTime.
Oh yeah.
I know you were on a cruise ship as well, so I'm
Same thing.
Yeah,
Similar
yeah.
thing.
So what I would do is when I was off the ship, I would go and like screenshot Instagrammers that I liked. So like one of the ones that I was obsessed with was Tosh Oakley. She's created this bikini company off of her posting pictures of her in bikinis.
Okay.
She has one Instagram called A Bikini a Day, and it's her every day wearing a bikini. And then she made a company called Monday Swimwear off of her following because people love her in a bikini.
Yeah.
So I was like, what? How is this woman doing this? So what I would do is I would screenshot these like Instagram posts, and I'd screenshot her language, and I would look at all these other influencers. And then when I was on the cruise ship for hours on end traveling with no Wi-Fi, I would go back and I would read and I would kind of study those posts.
Yeah.
But I got back. I basically the ship was a trying experience in that they sold us as the lead singers of the ship. Like we would be, these glamorous faces of the ship, I guess. And ultimately we were picking up ping pong balls. We had we were doing shuffleboard. We were counting shuffleboard scores. We were standing at doorways, greeting people for performances we weren't in.
Oh, you're crew staff.
Yes. And we would perform once every 10 days, basically. And so most of the time I was not fulfilling what I had anticipated, like, what you go on a cruise ship for is to be the lead singer.
Yeah.
So ultimately, this one man, I kind of had this moment, this man, he came up to me. We had done probably 2 performances in that shift of a cruise ship. These cruises were long. They were like 3 to 72 days, like 3 weeks to 72 days. So they were very long cruise ship like experiences for the guests. So we performed every 10 days because they were on the ship for so long.
Yeah.
And they didn't need to see the show again. Whereas a smaller cruise ship, they have a week, so they perform every day and the people love it and they leave.
Yeah.
So they just needed to spread out the entertainment, I guess.
Yeah.
So this gentleman who had seen probably 2 of the shows we had done, he came up to me when I was standing at a doorway with my hands behind my back, and he said, can I be honest with you? And I was like, sure, of course. He was like, you are so good. He was like, you should really consider doing this for a full-time job. And I said, sir, you're looking at it. Like, this is what it means to be a professional performer. Mm-hmm. And it didn't align with what we think it's going to be, So I got back, and a few days later, my friend, she had just moved to Hong Kong and she was struggling with the transition. And so her husband basically offered to send me and her to a retreat in Bali. He was like, she's really sad. Okay. We would love to bring you out here as a surprise and send you 2 on a retreat because I believe that will be really beneficial for her and you as well.
Yeah.
He said it's less about the money and more about the time. Whether you have the time. And I was like, I have the time. So
I got the time about it.
Yes.
Bali.
So I moved out of my sublet and I was like 2 days later, I was on a flight to Hong Kong to see her and surprise her. And ultimately I spent 12 days in Hong Kong with them, and then we went to Bali. And I think I was a little scared. It was a yoga and surf retreat. It was literally a dream. I mean, obviously, ultimately, as an actress, I was like, how has this even happened to me? How did I get this experience? And I was a little nervous about the yoga because I thought that the yoga would kind of unearth something in me that I wasn't ready to come to terms with.
Okay.
But it wasn't. I was actually getting a massage, and I had my face in that thingy, in that circle, and it just hit me. I was like, I don't want to do theater anymore. I want to go on dates at night. Ooh, I want to be able to afford a vacation like this again. I want to be able to afford a massage again. I want to be able to travel and not have to worry about what audition I'm missing. I had just been so determined and so focused on theater that I didn't realize that I was not looking at the quality of my entire life and assessing that. So it was great realizing it in Bali because I was able to voice it, which was very scary. It's like, you know, when you're in college and one of your classmates decides not to do theater and you're like, did you hear?
Yeah.
She doesn't want to do theater. Like, and everybody treats it like they've died. Like, they're like, oh, it's so sad. Like, she didn't get it. Like, she just doesn't want to do this anymore. Like, God rest her soul. It's like
She's passed on.
Right. But it's like, they always said in school, if you find something that you like better, do it. Because that will reward you far more than, because it's tough. And I totally get it. And I do believe that I had a great career in whatever, realm you want to call that. But it was very taxing.
Yeah.
So
your face is in the donut.
Yes, I'm in the donut, and I literally opened my mouth and was like, oh, yeah, it just hit me. It just like, it fucking hit me. And I was like, I remember after the massage, I was like, I pulled my friend Nikki aside and I was like, I don't think I want to do theater anymore. And my biggest fear, what I struggled with, then I spent the rest of the week, obviously, being very introspective in Bali. Like, it was the perfect place to kind of
grab your journal, sit on the beach.
Oh, totally. I mean, it could not be a better situation.
Yeah.
For my journey and my growth in that fear.
Yeah.
But my biggest fear was disappointing my parents because it was not only, like, being on Broadway was not only my dream, but my parents' dream too. And they've spent money and time and years driving me to gymnastics and dance practice and, all of those things that parents make, the sacrifices parents make for children who want to be in theater. So that was my biggest fear. And the women that were at this retreat with me were like, your parents will want you to be happy. That's ultimately what any parent wants. So remember that. Of course. And go for that.
Yeah.
So I got back and I had this friend. I met him at a networking event. I was like, I love being social. I'm like a little butterfly. So I met this like guy who owned a company, the CEO of this company. And we would have like accountability meetings, like in the mornings once a month. And I'd be like, are you working out? And he'd be like, no. And then I'd be like, oh, you should change your social. Like, this isn't great. You should do this and do this. And he kept being like, why don't you come work for me? And I'd be like, no, I'm an actress. So when I got back from the cruise ship, I was like, we should talk. So I told him that I did want to be considered for like a social media position. Obviously I had like really no experience, but it was all intuition and like studying, and like I would like read these articles about like the algorithms and like all of these like things.
Do you find any of those to work? Be truthful.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's just like they're changing the algorithm every 15 seconds. So like you just have to be on it, you know, and it's funny because like now people work on Instagram, like people who have businesses on Instagram are so paranoid. They're like, like recently I had a client who had posted and they forgot to give me photo credit, and I was like, hey, do you mind just giving me photo credit? And they were like, I'd love to, but if I edit it, then it decreases my algorithm chance of people seeing it. And I was like, okay, well, there's just so many things, and there's lots of rumors. I don't know. I don't know.
We don't know.
Honestly, I edit my posts all the time, so I'm like, okay. Yeah. But it would make sense. The idea would be stopping influencers from posting something and then editing it to add a code later. because it doesn't look good in the beginning to have a code, because then it becomes a sponsored thing and then people kind of disconnect from that. So
The authenticity
of
of
it. Exactly. So then they go back and they write ad later.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it says that it's been edited, and then that would hide your visibility. So I can understand why that would be something.
Oh, interesting.
You know, I think it's it's very tricky. There's just a lot of that. So,
Yeah.
but I was
Yeah.
just studying these algorithms, and I was like, I really want to work. I want to work for you.
Yeah.
I think I can do this. So he took a chance on me. He was like, sure. Like, he fired the other social girl. He brought me on.
Classic.
But apparently she wasn't doing.
What was needed?
Yes. So not like I could do it at the time either. It was more like I knew I had this raw desire and raw talent to like do something. But nobody had given me a chance yet, or like given me, I didn't have the opportunity.
Yeah.
So I started working for him, and it was a very expensive agency. And so the clients that we had that would pay for the social, it was like, I had one client, and I was taking pictures of something that didn't really bring me joy and didn't really inspire me. And I was like managing that account, and I was kind of just like I was like, I can do this differently. At that same time, he was taking me out to events to sell. Like, he was teaching me how to be a salesperson as well, because he knew that I had some like talent in that.
To sell the product you're photographing?
No, so to sell
The business.
to sell anything that business was selling.
Got
And
it.
he was basically, when you're a salesperson, you get commission.
Yeah.
So I was getting like 10% of these deals that I was bringing in. Even though I was a social media gal, I was still like selling more than the sales guy.
Yeah.
Because I'm the blonde with the smile. So what ended up ultimately happening.
Actors are wonderful.
I know. Well, and
Everything else.
right. Well, and he definitely could see my assets, like beyond me liking social and being a photographer. He was like, this girl is going to get clients for me. Like, he could tell that I was like a great bait.
Yeah.
And also, I don't think that there's anything wrong with recognizing that asset in order to capitalize on making money. Like, anyway,
It's business.
right.
Yeah.
So, what was happening was he was putting me at all these events, and we were going together, and it was a great experience. We would always have so much fun, and I would get these great connects. But what was happening was so he gave me these business cards, and the business cards had like this weird like watercolor print of my face on them. Like, I guess everybody in the company had the watercolor print, but I was like, not about the print. It was not cute. It was like this weird photo editing watercolor thing on the back of the card. So it would be like, it said my name, and then it would have my phone number, and then on the other side it was this weird picture of me. So I was like, I'm not loving that. And I was meeting all these like handsome rich men that I was like potentially would be my husband. So I was like, I need a different card.
I can't look like I'm wet.
Yes, exactly.
Out of the pool.
Exactly. Like, it just like was not cute for me. And so I was like, I need a card that is for my husband's, a separate card that's not for this company, because like not every man is going to turn into a conversion for business, but they could be my husband.
I think in conversion for husband.
Well, that too. But they should get a different card.
Yeah.
So what I was thinking was, I was like, how do I introduce myself? Like, what is the best way that people won't forget? My friend Dylan is brilliant, and he owns a company. It's a social media company for food, for like restaurants. And he has like his business cards change all the time, but they're always something so like unique and like trendy and cool. And so I was like, I need something like that. So I ended up making a business card on Vistaprint, and I was like, what is the best way to describe me? What would someone say if they were like, oh, do you know Stephanie? She's this. And ultimately I came up with the blonde with the smile, because I am always smiling. Like, I believe in positivity. I want to radiate that. The blonde with a smile. And then I'm blonde. So I can't change my hair color because I'm locked in on this. But I was like, oh, that's actually really awesome. So what I found was in this agency that I wasn't getting the experience that I thought that I would. So ultimately, I practiced branding myself. So I was branding made myself a website, theblondewithasmile.com. And I basically just put a few headshots. I put it like, technically I was working part-time for them. So I believed that I could photograph on the side. So I just made a photography website. I didn't put anything that had to do with like website building or social strategy, because that was kind of what I was doing for them. And ultimately, so my boss, the CEO, found the website and like threatened to fire me. And I was like, what? Like, I was so loyal to him because he had given me a chance. I was getting paid more money than I ever knew what to do with, because as an actress, I had obviously no idea what I was doing. And he was like, yeah, you're trying to steal your clients out from my clients. And I was like, my clients are paying me $50 for a photo shoot. Like, you're getting $190 per hour. Like, we're playing in different spaces. And the people that I was photographing, you know, I really gear towards the wellness space, because the photography is bright, it's airy, it's truthful, all of that. So ultimately I was like, why would he think that? I was just so blind to it, because I was like, I'm just practicing. And he's like, but you made a business card. And I was like, those are for my husband's. Like, you know, like he was very threatened by me. So ultimately it just became a bit toxic in the way that he just felt so threatened. And I was so loyal. I was like, I would never leave him, because he gave me this new opportunity that I otherwise would have never had. Can you imagine applying to a social media job with no social media experience? I'm like, I just got off a cruise ship.
Good luck.
Yeah, right, exactly. So ultimately I decided that it was time for me to leave. So I gave my 2 weeks notice. And he ended up cutting it in half. He was like, we only need you for a week, so hand in your passwords. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But that fire and that fuel was exactly what I needed, because then within the week I had all these photo shoots lined up. Like when I was thinking about leaving, my girlfriend said, she said, the sooner you get rid of the energy that is weighing you down, the sooner you can attract the people you want to work with. So ultimately I let go of that energy with that situation that wasn't serving me. And immediately people were reaching out to me being like, I hear you're a photographer. Like, and I was like, I guess I am. So I did one free photo shoot for my friend. It was a yoga photo shoot. He was doing all these crazy, like amazing tricks, like holding himself upside down and doing the one arm thing. And then literally from there, people started seeing that work. They started reaching out. I started creating this kind of price structure where I was still not being paid what I should have. And then literally I like look back and I'm like, oh my God, I just keep evolving. I just keep going. So ultimately I was doing a photo shoot for a client and they were like, yeah, your website is so amazing. Like, I love your website. And I was like, I guess I could do that for you. Like, it didn't even occur to me that I should sell this. And I got my website skills from college. We were all sitting around our senior year and we were like, we need websites as actors. And so I remember sitting for hours on end being like, how do I do this? Like, Squarespace is confusing, like moving things around and doing all of that. Like, how do you do that? But so I had figured it out. I ended up making the Showcase website for Penn State, which is still the same website now, which is so cool. Like 5 years later, I'm like, you're welcome. But like, I was like, I guess I could make it. And I made it myself for my own website. So why wouldn't I be able to do that? So I started that. And then people were like, your Instagram is popping and it seems like you know brands. And so ultimately I ended up integrating the social strategy as well, because I have this like gift of like listening to or ingesting a brand and then being like, this is how to tell that story. And this is how to ultimately reach the people who will pay you money. Or book you a job, or you know, whatever.
Speaking strictly visually.
Yes. Well, it's the storytelling in every aspect. It's like obviously on Instagram, you're showing a photo, but like that photo tells a lot, and then also what you choose to write is ultimately really powerful as well. So I ended up integrating that, and now I have this company that offers social strategy, website development, and photography. And the ideal client is someone who needs all three, because then I sit with you, I curate your brand's identity through social. We determine what that looks like as a whole. And then I take the photos, which like are so on brand because we've determined your colors, your voice, your ethos, all of the things we need. And then I design a website that is on Squarespace. So not like a custom website in that it's WordPress or anything, but that it is custom in that no one could have curated these photos and these images and integrated them so well into something that serves you.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Now, was this all learned on the job, or have you read like?
No, this
Anything.
is YouTube. This is hours of guessing and a lot of me saying yes and figuring it out later.
What are you YouTubing?
Like lights, how to use my camera. I bought my 6D Mark II. I invested in it. It was my first big purchase as my business. And I literally went to a shoot the next day, pulled up my YouTube with my girlfriend Alyssa, and I guessed. I just figured out. I didn't even know how to shoot manual when so I was on my Rebel, and
That was
I was
my next question. Okay, well,
Yeah.
we'll get.
yeah. So I was like on my Canon Rebel. I had
Yeah.
I did like not a year, but like probably 6 months shooting my legitimate business on my Canon Rebel, which is like not a camera for like it is baby's first camera. It's an amazing camera to go to Paris with your parents and take pictures of the Notre Dame.
It'll look great. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll look amazing. Will not let you down. But not to sell a service, So I had it for that long, but I didn't know how to use my camera. Ultimately, I went I went to this event. I was photographing. I met this woman. She worked for a big food company, and she was like, "Oh, do you photograph food?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." I mean, if you can photograph people, you can photograph food. So I hadn't photographed food, but I could. And she was like, "Oh, great. Well, I work for this massive company, and I would love to bring you in for a meeting, and we can talk about hiring you." And I was like, "Dope. Yeah, cool."
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, I don't have a fucking body of work I don't have anything. I don't even have a professional camera. So ultimately I called my girlfriend Alyssa, who owns a company called Meal Prep Chef. It's a service that the chef comes to your house, cooks you exactly what food is on your diet, and then you have it for the whole week. You know that it's healthy. You know it's delicious. Wow. It's an amazing experience. So I asked her, I said, "Hey, can I come to one of your cooking sessions? Be glam. I'm going to get photos of you, and I'm going to curate a food photography portfolio with what you cook." And she was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." So obviously she's getting great content because I'm taking gorgeous photos of her. But then also that was Tuesday, and on Wednesday I walked into this big corporation and I said, "Here's my food portfolio." And I got hired. So a lot of it is like, yeah, I'm just like guessing and running. Like I wanted to build a studio in my apartment because I was shooting outside a lot, and that's not, it's cold in New York. So I wanted something. I wanted to do headshots. I wanted to be more professional. I wanted to get that. So I didn't know what I was doing. Have never used a light. I used to say I'm a natural light enthusiast, which basically means I don't know how to use lights. So ultimately I went on YouTube, which ultimately was not helpful. On YouTube, if you would like to figure out how to make a $50 light out of I don't know, what is that, foam coolers, then you can. That's on YouTube. What's not on YouTube is like, I have $3,000 budget and I want a good studio. Like, what can I get? There's not that package. So I went to B&H. I found my friend Lewis, who is still my go-to guy. And I said, "Lewis, I need a studio. My room is 10 by 10, 10 by 11. I need it all to fit in a closet. How much time you have? Like, how much time you got?" And he was like, we spent 3 hours together, and he walked me through everything I needed to know. I got home with the strobe light, set it up, and like crossed my fingers, hoping that it would work. Yeah. And then ultimately the photography learning in that is like, once you know the basis of like what you've kind of learned, then you can start getting creative and playing. And so, but a lot of the time, especially in this business, I feel like I'm just saying yes to opportunities because I know that I am capable of it. I just haven't had the experience yet. So a lot of learning on the job, a lot of like, but the benefit of that is like, I had a girlfriend, I was telling her recently, I was like, I feel very stretched. I feel like my learning is happening at an exponential rate all the time. And I feel like I'm in a torture chamber where they're like stretching my arms. a lot.
Like, how much more can I learn?
Yes, right. I'm like, I can do these things, but like it's all at once. So it's a lot, and it's very humbling all the time. I have to be like, imagine every day of your life being like, I don't actually know how to do that. Let me figure that out. It's a lot. It's very mental. And I told her that, and she said, right, but think about all these people who go to school for years and years to train to do that one thing, and now they're just waiting for that opportunity. Instead, you have the opportunity where you're being paid to learn. And I was like, you're right, I'm never complaining again. Like, it's like how lucky that I get this opportunity where people are coming to me because they believe in what I create, and they believe that I can do it, and that I keep saying yes, and that I keep telling the story that I do know how to do it ultimately. It's been like, it's very, when I talk to people, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And they're like, that's what owning a business is. Like, nobody knows what they're doing. True. And I think the difference between starting a business and not is just doing it.
Yeah, it's literally just doing it.
Right.
This, well, thank you.
Yes.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
I would love to get into some of these specifics, rewinding just a little bit. And so, okay, so I'm curious then, with the camera you're using now, which is a
6D Mark II.
Great. That you're shooting manually.
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Of course.
Do you have a sweet spot between, like, what is that? Like aperture, ISO, shutter speed, is that the wrong one?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It kind of depends. Like, basically, it all depends on what you're shooting. So I do a lot of like dancers. I shoot a lot of dancers who are like flying up in the air. And because of my theatrical background, I can be like 5, 6, 7, 8, port de bras. Yes. I can be like, which is what, like, I mean, last week I did this massive photo shoot for this company called Dance Body. And it's a fitness studio in New York, but it's dancers. So I'm like, okay, port de bras. Like, I won the job because I know how to communicate to them. I know how to capture them in motion. So obviously for that, you want your shutter speed to be super high because it's like as quickly as possible. You catch them right in the moment. But then with lighting, it's different too. Like, you have to play with different variations. Like, if you're using a strobe light, your strobe light is super powerful. So you'll have your f-stop up to like 11 or something, depending on what it is. Obviously keep your ISO as low as possible at all times.
Why is that?
So like ISO is like the quality of the photo. So like if you go up to like really high, then your face becomes like this, like there's no lines. It becomes this, like, you're fuzzy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know. Yes.
So like ultimately shooting in a dark place is like your worst nightmare because you have to have everything down super low.
Yeah.
But then it's always blurry or fuzzy or, so
yeah.
Keep your ISO as low as possible and then play with the other two is what I normally do.
Yeah. I'm just so interested in that because I had recently purchased a camera, not of the same quality, but close. And there was the smartest thing, you brought up YouTube, and the smartest thing I did was watch a 20-minute video on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, it's everywhere. You can learn anything on YouTube.
It's like a $60,000 a year college course.
Yeah.
In 20 minutes.
Yeah, I know. Well, and that's the thing.
Crazy.
It's like one of the other things that I've learned as a business owner, it's like people, I had this experience recently. My girlfriend who owns the meal prep chef company, she was an actress at Penn State as well. And so we both find ourselves being like, how did we get here? Like, how do we have these empires that we kind of like, fell upon?
Right.
And she's like, I don't know how to cook, but she does. And she came to my house a couple days ago and taught me how to meal prep because I'm about to have knee surgery and I wanted to know more about it. And watching her in the kitchen was magic. She was just like, she looked like a ballerina, and she was chopping so quickly and making the food is delicious. She knows how to cook. And so what I learned in that experience is I didn't know how to photograph. I didn't know how to use my camera. I didn't know how to use a strobe light. Now I do. It doesn't matter how you learn. No. Just doing it. Like, yes, I did not go to college for photography or social strategy, but that's not, now that I know what I know, there is no one's going to be like, I must have a Juilliard trained photographer. Like, that's not real. No. So I'm practicing not saying I don't know anymore because it's not that I don't know. It's that I don't know right now and that I will know.
But I can learn.
Right. You learn.
Yeah. There's no degree. I was going to say there's no degree to be an entrepreneur, but there is.
Yeah.
But it's like you're much better off, figuring out how you're going to pay your rent
Yeah,
with your passion project.
absolutely.
Anyway, so going back to social media,
Mm-hmm.
what are some like incorrect pieces of advice that you're hearing in terms of, I don't know, the story someone tells on Instagram, actors in particular of having a presence on Instagram?
Right. Well, ultimately, I think what the biggest mistake in Instagram culture is that we like really sugarcoat a lot of the things that we're doing, and it's kind of like it's within us and we don't want to share these like other hard parts, but like people resonate with authenticity and it's so obvious. And if you're telling the wrong story, if you're telling this like dreamy story and you show up as an audition as an actor and you're not portraying the same thing that you've been telling online, that's inauthentic. No one would want to work with that. Why are you lying? It's like,
Who are you? You're
right,
two different people.
And it's not that you're lying, but like right off the bat, you're not telling the truth. Really.
It's also confusing.
It's confusing.
I mean, we organize. We're
Right,
organization creatures. So if you have something that doesn't match,
Right. And like making something curated to seem like a specific way kind of actually is a disservice to you because ultimately it's not authentic to you. So what I would say is like, only posting your successes or your jobs, which a lot of people do, ultimately that doesn't make you a well-rounded human that people want to work with. So there's that. Let me think. Hashtags. Hashtags is a big thing that's been happening recently. Like obviously everybody uses the hashtags in the world. They released this new algorithm that like really disturbs that. So ultimately what you used to do is you would have this like, list of 30 hashtags and you would say, okay, like these are the ones that work for me. So Entertainment X, podcast,
NYC,
performer, NYC, yes.
musical, whatever.
And every time you post, you would put that in your hashtag bank.
Yeah.
And then it would hopefully live in those banks. What Instagram decided to do is shadow banning. And shadow banning is, it looks like it's on. When you're on your account, it looks like that photo shows up in those banks. But if you use the same hashtags too many times, and it's all 30 every single time, they shadow ban you. They hide the photo, and it doesn't get seen by the people that are in your audience, which ultimately reduces your algorithm chances to be seen for the next post. So they could be hiding your photo that you think is being seen. And the only way to do that is to like have a separate account and then go in and look at the hashtag and see if it's there. It's like, it's so hard to navigate. So what I would recommend for hashtags specifically is to make sure that you're picking 5 or 6, 7 of the most valuable ones that are very specific to that one and posting those. So the example would be if we took a picture of us sitting here, it would be podcast, entrepreneur, female entrepreneur, Entertainment X, and social strategy podcast. And you would keep that. And then the next one that you would post a photo of you filming something, it would be a different set of hashtags. And that way you're not hiding your own photos.
That's so interesting. So then if someone's posting like photos that have the hashtag musical in them, they always put musical in their hashtags.
Yeah.
You're saying limit that to 1 every 5 photos?
Yeah, because ultimately the algorithm score is gets lowered. So there's so many of these. There's so many of these like tips and tricks. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely just be careful and consistent and intentional with your posts, with your hashtags. Ultimately, hashtags are a great way for people to find your work. I've had clients that have found me through Photographer NYC, which is like hilarious. Like there are lots of Photographer NYCs.
It's like 79 million uses of that.
Exactly. So, but the idea that someone found me through that, it's very valuable as a marketing tool.
Yeah.
But you want to be specific. Like also, what is that specific audience? Is musical the most effective hashtag for an actor? Is it?
I don't
Who's
know.
looking at the musical hashtag?
12 to 14-year-old girls?
Exactly. So like, are they going to hire me for a job?
Right.
No. So like, the Growing Studio NYC, Steps, BDC, like
Yeah.
specific things that actually are so
Schubert
like
organization. No, I'm just kidding.
right. Wicked. But just like, just being really specific in what you're like, who do you
Right.
want to connect with? Do you want to connect with people who also go to BDC? I would say yes. That sounds like a good connection. So like being specific in that. Don't buy your followers.
Oh God.
I know that's like some people say yes, some people say no. Ultimately, it is really impressive to have a great following, but if you have 20,000 followers and you're getting 100 likes on your photos, that like something's wrong.
In your opinion, what is the proportion of followers to likes when it's authentic
Yeah.
or real?
It depends. Honestly, right now, like there's this big thing with Instagram where they are like just kind of trying to eliminate the influencer. Like they do not like influencers, so they hide a lot of their photos. So
with YouTube regarding this, but
there are some influencers that have like 100,000 followers and they're getting 2,000 likes now, whereas before they were getting 10,000, 20,000. You know, so right now Instagram is doing all that it can to not help people make money off of it. So ultimately it is a big hot topic discussion. Ideally you're doing amazing if you get 5% engagement. But it's also like you can track that engagement on like how many people are writing to your comments, like how many people are responding. I also find that like when I go out in my real life, when I'm in real world, people will be like, hey, what you wrote about that really spoke to me. Thank you for sharing that. So like for me, that's currency. That's value because then people resonate with what I'm experiencing and what I'm sharing.
It's a real person
Yes.
who really sees
Yes.
what you've really said.
Yes. And they're responding in a way
And now
that
they wanna follow
right.
you.
And then not only is our social experience happening online, but it's also happening in real life. Isn't that the goal?
That is.
Like you want a casting director to follow you
Yeah.
to ultimately hire you.
Cast you.
Yes, exactly. And that happens in real life.
Yeah. What's your ratio of posting to scrolling?
Oh my gosh. Well, truthfully, I have a limit on my phone. So I only let myself.
Like an app that limits you, or you?
No, so
mental?
like in your actual iPhone can, it's you
The
can
screen
set
time
screen
thing,
time.
yeah.
Yeah. So I've set a limit for myself. I allow myself 1 hour on Instagram a day. I also have like the ignore for 15 minutes option, which I end up doing a lot of the time. I
What is that?
try. It's like once it says like, oh, you've reached your quota, then you can say
Snooze
ignore
it.
for 15
Oh, yeah,
minutes.
it's like, cool. All right.
So like it does help me kind of realize just how deep I'm going. And then obviously the screen time report. It's crazy though. It's like it is very scary because like ultimately I do spend an hour a day on Instagram, and then that means I'm spending 7 hours a week just with a whole day with my nose in my phone. I don't like that.
But that's for posting as well.
Yeah.
Like,
So
you give yourself-
ultimately what I do is I choose the most time consuming thing for me is picking the photo and like editing the photo to be what on brand and like aesthetically pleasing for the rest of my feed and all of that.
Yeah.
So I obviously do that in other apps. Then I write my comment when I'm on the subway, when I have no signal, I write that comment in the notes.
I do that
Yeah.
for my descriptions for the podcast.
Yeah.
Because then I'm sitting there completely
I have
and I'm
nothing
just
else.
like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, what is this? What did I feel? What did I remember from
Yeah.
this? What is
Yeah. Yeah.
Smart.
So ultimately I do it on the subway, and then
Yeah.
hopefully at that time of the day, I just go in and post it. Like I just make it happen.
Okay.
But realistically, the posting itself takes 4 minutes. So like, what am I doing for the other
Once it's all organized,
hour?
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
A lot of the time I'm scrolling. I also find like, okay, so maintaining an account like mine takes a lot of active engagement. The people that are commenting want to hear back from me. So being active, like most of that hour is spent writing back to people who have written things, like engaging with them, making them feel like I'm very accessible. And when I fall behind on that, it's very noticeable. My viewership and my comments, my engagement goes down because people want to know that I'm there.
Yeah.
And if I'm not showing them that, then they don't respond well.
How are you keeping like a mental balance of that to not be overwhelmed by
I just
like, oh shit, I
mean,
gotta get
just,
on
like,
here and respond?
I
or
just
it's-
don't do it. which is like
Okay,
which,
next
like,
question.
Could be. I mean, it could be right. So that's like a huge discussion, and especially like being an entrepreneur and like discovering all of this, the amount of stress that I have in a week, just trying to figure out how to curate these things that people want me to curate that I know I can do, but I just need to learn. It's just a lot. So what ultimately Instagram, social media is the last thing that people focus on because it's so time consuming. It's very confusing, but people are finally recognizing the value of it. And so that's a nice dynamic in order to figure out what is the balance. For me, I decided this a long time ago. I don't want to sell out. I don't want to post just to make money. It's not important to me. Yeah. Like my following is not that important. What is important to me is like putting out my work so that people resonate with me and then ultimately want to work with me because they see what they would get with a photo shoot. So the idea, like Blonde with a Smile, is like, that's perfect branding because like if you hire me for a photo shoot, what's going to show up? A smiley blonde girl.
What you see. Right.
So ultimately I'm like telling that story, which is in line with what my life is, which ultimately gets me jobs. And it would be the same for acting and like getting those jobs.
Have you found great apps that are near free or free that you use for posting or templating?
Yeah. So
you go to?
Right. I work with several companies where I'm managing their social monthly. So I curate their feeds. I do the photo shoots. I like interact with, I have a few assistants. And so I interact with those specific clients on that basis. So for those kind of scheduling situations, I use Later, which is a great app. I don't like it for my personal account because my personal account is more like a backstage look at what my life is like. And if I scheduled it a month in advance, like that's weird. So,
You're like 1 month from now, I'm going to talk about how I'm insecure about my...
Right. Or like how I tore my ACL a month ago. It's like, okay, well that doesn't really, it's not happening now. And I don't like that inauthenticity of it.
Yeah.
But something like Later, like if you're starting, for you, like even a podcast, it's like you can generate that content and you can be like, this is a blurb from an experience that I had 3 months ago, like enjoy, you can always do that. And then the benefit of that is it's 5:00 and you don't have to be like, what the fuck am I posting? Like that stress is a bad stress. Yeah. And most of the time, more times than not, I just end up not posting because I've missed the window, and it's a great excuse for me to be like, yeah. I'm just like, oh, sorry, I missed the window. But if you schedule it, something like Later is a great opportunity to do that. So I would recommend that. My favorite editing apps for just like if you take a photo in a dark room and you want to just increase the light, like all of that. The best app for like color editing, lighting, that kind of thing, it's called Snapseed. It's through Google. It's free. And it's a great app. They really there's just really great ways to kind of play and move around. You can increase the saturation on specific places. You can, all of that. So that's one of my favorite apps to retouch things, to like get things out super quick, is an app called Retouch. I think that's $1.99. And then let me think, what else do I really like? VSCO, which is like my editing, my like filter app. I would recommend never using an Instagram filter. They're bad. Okay. And people don't know that you can like change the like intensity of it. Yeah. So it's like they think that it's like if it's gingham, then it's like gingham instead of like a subtle gingham, So like if you're going to use the Instagram app, the Instagram filters, then what you do is you click on it, it'll open up, and then you click on it again and it will open a sliding bar. You can change the color, you can change the saturation, you can do it all in there, but like use it responsibly.
That's what I ended up doing for a period of time, where I would go in and I wouldn't use the filters. I would just adjust. You can just like brightness and the color saturation.
And that's great. And like
no filter though, really.
Right. You don't really need a filter. And also sometimes you do, but like use it responsibly. There are so many people who are just like putting this filter that's like, it's like an intense filter. Which like could be a brand thing. Like you could,
if your brand is Instagram 2009.
Right. Like with the borders. Do you remember the borders?
Oh my God. The black one, the white one.
Oh my gosh. Or like the ripped paper.
Oh my gosh.
Edge. Oh my God. I look back at my old, I love the scroll down to the bottom. That's one of my favorite nostalgic trips. Just like being like,
Why did I ever think I should put that up? for
Right. Or
people
like,
to
look
see?
look how far I've come.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I like leaving it there because a lot of people, one of the also the like a bad advice, is like, if you want to start your Instagram and you want to take it to the next level, don't delete everything you had before. I love having it there, and you can archive it. But like,
Which is like hiding it. But not
right.
deleting
But it's like, that is like, ultimately that's like a diary that our children and grandchildren will be able to look at. And that's like really special, even though it's only the best parts because
Yeah.
that's all we share.
Yeah.
Ultimately it is really special, and people like looking at where you've come from. It doesn't, that your boost, your glow up doesn't need to be hidden. You don't need to pretend that you were always this thing. So don't
Yeah.
delete your stuff. I think I would keep it.
What's your like posting ratio? I know we're getting into like such numbers.
Yeah,
and
no.
analytics. This is so interesting to me personally. Are you like every day, every 3 days?
The goal is every day. Ultimately, I probably do. Honestly, it depends.
Yeah.
I would recommend posting every day. When I was an actress, I ended up following one of my agents, and immediately I was getting more appointments. Like, she loved my stuff. She was following me. She like would email me being like, "Hey Steph, we have this appointment for you. By the way, saw what you did this weekend, looked so fun." Like, creating that relationship with your agent without having to be like, hi, why don't I have that job?
Email.
Yes. Instead,
Yeah.
you're just like politely tapping them with some positive energy, and like, people respond really well to that.
Yeah.
So ultimately I really enjoyed like that relationship, and I saw that it was making a difference. So post every day, and don't freak out if you don't. It doesn't matter.
No, it really doesn't.
Really, it
I mean,
doesn't
we're talking
matter.
about Instagram.
Yeah.
It's such a funny balance because it's become so important, yet it's not important, but it is.
Yeah.
Like having an image, having a organized, like you hear people saying on brand, or
Yeah, it's my brand.
authentic.
Right.
But it's a difference between actually being real
Yeah.
and like that fake authenticity. Because now, and I've seen it. I've seen it. Tell me if you've seen it, where people are inauthentic or just not real about their low points as well.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
becomes like 3 paragraphs of, and it's like, are you really,
Yeah. Well,
or are you just trying to market on that?
Yeah. Well, and to be honest, like, very candidly, I am struggling with that currently because I am an entrepreneur. I own my own company, and I just injured my leg. I tore my ACL skiing a month and a half ago, and I will have surgery in the next 2 weeks, which will take me out for 6 weeks, like crutches and like ouchies. And then the rest of the time, up to 9 months, I could be healing. So when I was dealing with this diagnosis, I was depressed. Like, the idea of not having my full body really fucked with me. Like, it was one of my lowest points as a person. I've never been injured before, and I've always been so independent. And so asking for help is really hard for me. And I was being very candid about my experience online, but people don't really want to hear about it. Ultimately, they do not want to hear about it. So, I was posting being like, I really hurt my knee and it's been really dark. And like, some people reach out to me and some people are like, you got this, you can do this. Like, and that felt great. And that was nice. But at the same time, like, it is a platform that is only geared towards the best. So how do we
Talk about a low point.
Right. How do we be as authentic as possible and real about situations without bringing everything down and like losing your following because you're sad? It's a very fine balance. And I think the best way for that I've kind of navigated it is like, one, speak my truth. So like, I am injured and that is really hard. So when I do a huge feat, like a giant photo shoot with a missing ACL, I can celebrate that while also acknowledging how fucking hard it was.
Yeah.
So coming up with that kind of thing, but people do ultimately respond like they like the low dip. They don't want the basement stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So feel free to go to the low stuff and talk honestly about it, because people do resonate with that. But try not to stay there. I guess. I don't know.
Make it just all depressing.
Yeah. Just like, I'm so sad. But to
Yeah.
be honest, I don't know. I don't know the ratio.
Yeah.
So it's something I'm working on as well.
Yeah, I guess it's case by case depending on who you are
Yeah.
and who's like you that looks at you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and like, I have people reaching out being like, I tore my ACL last week too. I'm so sad. Like, people get it. People are there. But like things like depression and not getting a job, and like, how do we talk about that in a way that, one, doesn't make us sound like we're whiny actors? Two, how do we find, what is the positive in that? How do we create authentic, positive connection through that? And three, is this what the audience wants? It's kind of a hard balance. Yeah. But like, definitely talk about it. Don't not talk about it. I hate when people are like, oh my God, it looks like your life is amazing. Like when I hear other people say that to my friends, and I'm like, but really she's very sad today because something happened to her. And she's, for me too, it's like people, even when I'm like, this injury has really taken me down. Like it has been a thing for my soul, and like a soul altering experience, to the point where I was like, will I ever be the blonde with a smile again? Like that's how.
Or will it be the frown?
I know, the frown, like the blonde with the sad face, like the blonde who's always crying. So like, I'm like, okay, well, like, how do I navigate this on Instagram? How do I speak truthfully about this? Like it was very altering for me. I don't know where I was going with that. What was I saying? Oh no.
It's all good. Take a second. It'll come back around.
It was like,
maybe.
Hold on. What was?
Well, we were talking about how your friend had, your friend was
I've been
saying
so good staying on track this whole time.
Really good. No, but how your friend is sad that day, and people are like, oh my God, your life is so amazing.
Yeah. Oh, that's what it is. Thank you. I'm back. Hello,
you.
we're here. So like what I'm realizing is like, even what I'm writing online, people aren't understanding how it's affecting me, because they're seeing that I'm doing photo shoots. They're seeing that I'm like with a friend. I'm smiling with a friend. Like they're not seeing that, like that dark moment where it was my birth. I turned 27 5 days after I was injured, and I was sad that I wouldn't be able to see my people, because I was injured. And that's like, even people are like, I didn't even know she tore her ACL. Because some people don't read. They just consume the photos, which again is fine. But like the authentic reaches, the authenticity and the connection is in being honest. In a not self-deprecating way. Like maybe my advice would be like, what is the lesson in the pain that you're experiencing, and how can you share that? What valuable piece of information can you share from your experience?
What's the lesson in the pain?
Yeah. So talk
well
about
said.
the pain. Be like, this has been really hard for me. I didn't book this season, and I've been really like running myself dry. And what I realized was my auditions aren't as good because I am not giving myself time to breathe. And ultimately I promise to do that, or, I don't know. But
sharing that would
be,
yeah. No, I know. And it's funny. We've literally spent, and not a whole hour, but half of it talking about this Instagram thing. And I'm curious what your take on, obviously it's important.
Right.
In the sense that it will help you get work. That's just simply where, if you look at the screen time, the number one app on everyone's phone right now
is Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it would behoove you, if you wanted, to have more thought into what's going on there. At the same time, though, is it necessary?
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is. Even think about, like, the most simple form of this example would be if I was on an online dating app and I was linked with a guy and he did not have a social presence, I would think he's a murderer.
Oh, yeah. I used to think that about Facebook when I
Right?
would sublet.
You're like,
and I'd
yeah,
look
why
at someone's
don't...
Facebook and be like, why do they only have 47 friends?
Right. You're like, something's wrong with this person. Even though socially, like, I have a very good friend who is like, he's a little older. He's probably 36, but he doesn't have a social media. So like, he's like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, I tore my ACL. Didn't you see? And he's like, no. How would I see it? Like, you need to tell me that because you're my friend. And like, he definitely makes a very valid point about that. Like, ultimately, the connections we have need to be happening in real life. So he makes a great point about that. But I am getting jobs through an Instagram presence. You know, how many I probably have 900 photos. My 900 photos are bringing me thousands and thousands of dollars worth of business.
Indirectly.
Yep.
Again, you're not sponsoring posts.
Right. Exactly. So ultimately, I did have a friend a couple years ago, like 2 years ago or something. Yeah. They were deciding between her and another girl for Broadway. And they asked her how many followers she had. And they chose the other girl because she had 60,000 followers. I mean, the numbers don't lie. If you think about it, like, okay, one person on Broadway having 60,000 followers or someone with 1,000 followers, the chances of someone who follows them to come to the show because they want to see them, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It sucks. It sucks that it sucks that it's now even harder to get a job because if your social isn't huge, you might not get that experience. But yeah, it's super important. It's super important. There are casting directors who will, during an audition, have asked my friends what their handles are. I mean, are people putting it on their resume? They should.
I've been actually, I went in for one, like, must have been a month ago. And they literally, no, this was in November. And I literally asked for my Instagram. Yeah. And my Facebook.
There you go.
And my Twitter.
How did it make you feel?
I was like, well, good thing I'm posting.
Yes. Exactly. So you would agree that it is very important as well.
For an actor, yeah. My brother is he works in finance.
Yeah.
Keep it vague.
Sure.
And he's got, I don't know, 145 followers, but he only posts once every 3 months. But it doesn't matter. He's around people who don't even know what Instagram is.
Yeah.
Or the majority of them. So it's like a completely different field. The reason I bring that up is because if you're in a different, depending on what field you're in, it doesn't necessarily matter at all.
Sure.
Entertainment, it does.
Sure.
But if you're working,
Yeah, I think like finance, who cares? I mean, really. Unless he was starting a company that was,
disrupting the industry or whatever. But then at that point, you need to
Then he's an entrepreneur and he's in his own space anyway, and he needs a podcast. So then he has social. You know what I mean? Like, it all ends with social.
Yeah, it does. It really does. But that's why I just think this is such a great conversation to share with and take away some of the taboo-ness of it, because a lot of people, I mean, I know myself is like, I'm like, oh God, so if I want to have like a perfectly curated situation, I got to have X, Y, and Z, and it's got to be authentic. That's way too many hours. I don't have time to do that.
Totally.
Not
totally.
True. Not
right.
true.
So ultimately where I debunk the stress of it. So like, okay, so the posting is a lot, the timing, knowing what to post, hashtags, all of this, it's so much. And ultimately it only indirectly gets you jobs. No one would ever reach out to you and be like, we're hiring you for Broadway through Instagram. That's not how it works. No. But someone calls you in because they like your content and they think you're funny, and they bring you in because you'd be perfect for the role, and you book Broadway. Mm-hmm. So like the value of it is large, but the reward isn't as direct as working at a restaurant, getting paid money. But what is missing from a lot of profiles, when people are lost, the biggest issue is they don't have a strategy. So what I work with in my clients, this is like an inside look. When I offer social strategy, the goal is to figure out what at the core you are as a person, as a business, as a brand. How do we tell that story authentically? One of the experiences that I've learned and observed is that people on Instagram, when you follow someone, you are following them for the one thing that they promise to offer you, really. So for me, it's the blonde with a smile, which is funny. I don't know how much time you spent on my page, but it is photos of me smiling, because I told people that's what you're going to get. Right. Yeah. So if you think about it, I've actually not taken any one of those photos. But when I post a photo of me holding a camera, which means a photo I did not take. Yeah. I get thousands of dollars worth of interest. People reach out being like, hey, I'd love to book a photo shoot with you. Your photos are awesome. Like, have they seen them? I don't actually even know if people have seen my work. Definitely visiting my website is a powerful way to do that. And looking at the photos I'm tagged in, like, I'm littered with people who I've taken photos for. Yeah. But ultimately, none of the photos that are on my Instagram are photos I've taken. So the story that I've told them is photos of me smiling. So when I was testing this theory out, I would post a picture of a gorgeous avocado, beautiful photography layout of an avocado, that good avocado they get. People fucking don't care. They do not want to see my avocados. Okay. They want to see a blonde smiling. Yeah. Another great example in terms of like life experience that I follow this guy. I love lace front wigs. I'm like obsessed with them. And I mean, who isn't? They're gorgeous. And this man was on Instagram, and he would post the progress of him making a wig, a lace front wig, and they were gorgeous. Like he's Broadway, like he's a star.
Oh my.
So I know this man is posting photos about wigs. Like that's what he told me his brand was. And one day I was scrolling through and I saw this gross photo of like protein powder. And I was like, whose is this? Like I don't subscribe to someone who would post this kind of photo. And I went to the page and it was the wig guy and he lost me. I unfollowed him because he told me that he was going to show me gorge lace fronts. And instead he's showing me like some weird other part of his life that I'd never signed up for. Okay. So the same as my avocado, as beautiful as my photography is and my avocado is, people don't care.
Yeah.
They want to see the thing that you're deciding. So then, okay, so how do we find that? How do we determine what that thing is for you?
Right.
You know? So I offer this social strategy in that it's so important to come up with a game plan in order to navigate that. So what I do is I decide with my clients, I'm like, okay, these are the 4 themes that your photos can fall under in the categories. So what happens is for me, it's like if I'm at an event, that's part of my strategy, my brand. I'm traveling all the time and I'm at cool things that people want to be at. So whenever I'm there, I know, okay, sometime in the night, I have to get one photo of me. I take the photo, which takes 4 minutes. And then the rest of the night, I can live my life. Okay. I don't have to spend the rest of the time being like, okay, well, you know, what is my brand? You know, I know what my brand is.
Right.
It's a blonde smiling in front of a step and repeat. It's a blonde traveling. It's a blonde with the camera. It's a blonde with her friends. Like that's my breakdown. Yeah. So what is your breakdown? You know, coming up with the strategy of what's important to you and what is still consistent with, you know, you don't want to give them too much. If you know, sadly, if you want to be like the podcast king, then there's no place for protein powder.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's just like what people struggle with is they're like, I am me and there's so much of me and I want to share all of it. And so we almost die of analysis paralysis. You know, we sit there being like, what am I? And what is my brand? What is your brand? Like, you know, are you like, I have a friend who I was like, you know, he's very positive. So I branded him as this, it's the title is Maddie Loves. And like, the idea is he posts things that he loves. So like any of those, like all of a sudden it's this overarching thing of like, Maddie loves this thing. So like he could post a picture of a turkey burger with his face because it's him loving it. So like finding what specifically resonates with you and how that is reproducible. A lot of people like, you know, I had this one client one time who was like, I want to be an Instagram celebrity who travels. And I was like, okay, great. Like, do you have enough money for a photographer to go on a vacation with you to take those photos? And she's like, well, no. And I'm like, do you have any vacations booked in the future? She's like, well, no. And I was like, that doesn't seem sustainable. You know, like we want to be realistic. What are you doing in your everyday life that can be captured that allows people to see? Like, you know, I was talking with Sarah, the one who introduced us, and she was like, I think I want like she goes back and forth about making a following or staying, you know, incognito. Yes. But so she goes back and forth and I'm like, you're traveling all the time. Like you are doing all these fun events. You're in these places. Like the only difference between having a following and not is getting a photo of you in those spaces. They're already happening. You're not making things up. You're not producing this like...
She does travel.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
like get a photo of her with her away suitcase with a peace sign every time she's on a plane. Done. People love that. People want to see that, you know? So what is happening in your everyday life that can be reproduced all the time?
This is really, really good because, and I'm going to take it over to creating the podcast. If I were to talk about lighthouses, I love lighthouses.
Do you?
If I were to talk about it though, everyone would be like, well, hold on. I'm here for entertainment.
Yes.
I'm here for Soul and Drive, top performers.
Right.
What can I learn to increase my X with entertainment?
Sure.
That's what it is.
Right.
But if I talked about lighthouses, it'd be like, it's not called Lighthouses X.
Right.
And so
exactly.
finding out how do you create that with photographs? Because they're almost like, you know, okay, you're an actress.
Yeah.
You're sassy. You're, you know, these things. Taking photos to fulfill that can be, there can almost be a mind block there because
Right.
when you write that down or you think about that, it's like, well, how would I capture that on the daily?
Sure.
But you brought up really good points about like travel, or if you're like MO is New York City, a sensible brick wall once a week.
Yes.
People will like it.
Exactly. Or there are a lot of like,
Or even the borough you live in.
yeah,
No, it
just
doesn't even have to
showing
be
where
New
you
York
are.
City. Yeah.
Yes. So the best example would be like, there are a lot of women and men that are actors that are like fueling our fitness industry in New York. They're everywhere. You know,
Lord,
come
I
to
know.
Barry's, come do Dance Body, do all of these things. Like
Yeah.
all of those, like
so
we have
true.
these trainers, and it's brilliant because they're able to stay in shape for their job, and the hours are flexible. So it works.
And it's
in,
good money just
exactly,
to do it. But yeah.
Exactly. So like you're getting paid to work out. It's the dream. So like, how do we find the proper balance of not annoying your following with your Barry's boot camp schedule while also still telling the story that you're an actor? You know, how do you do that? I would say your profile would be more about the grind of an actor, and then occasionally some sexy fitness selfies where you're like, yes, I am a trainer.
I have an 8-pack.
Exactly. Oh, by the way, I have an 8-pack. Yeah. And so curating that in a specific way, like just what is already happening in your life,
Yeah.
like that you can capitalize on. Like, do you like a specific thing? Like how can you fit that under one umbrella? Something like the Blonde with a Smile, or, you know, ultimately whatever your specific brand is, tell the story that you want them to consume. Don't fake it, but like what part of your life, you know, a lot of my job is encouraging people to let go of some things that are important to them. You know, like I work with a celebrity trainer, and he has kids, and he would love to post photos of his kids, but that's not what people want to see. You know, they want to see him working with huge famous people. So ultimately we get him a little account for himself so that it's like for his joy. And then we get his profile that's curated and up. So like a lot of people struggle because they're like, but this is my diary and I want this to be something that's authentic. There's a difference between authenticity and like specific storytelling, if that makes sense. Like
It does.
you don't see any photos of the food I eat, but I eat very healthy and I take pride in that. I send that photo to my boyfriend and I send that photo to my parents and they love it, you know, rave reviews,
Yeah.
but it's not the story that I'm telling.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's tons of examples like that. Working out is important for a lot of performers. Some people post about it, some people don't.
Right.
And they do it the same amount.
Sure.
It's just what do you
Right.
focus on?
But if you want, like, if you are if you're an actor who also wants private clients for personal training so that you can get your side hustle going, then post those workout selfies all the time.
Yeah.
Then that's your brand.
It would behoove you
Exactly.
to do that. Okay.
Exactly. There's also one more thing that like, there's this huge stigma. It's like we grew up in this time where it was like Instagram was new and like it's not something, you know, everybody's trying to like scrounge to navigate for what the right answer is.
Yeah.
But like there's this preconceived thing that like they're like, I don't want to post photos of myself because that's like people will think I'm whatever, self-centered or like
Fake,
love
cocky,
myself,
stuck up,
right,
diva,
right.
any of those.
And right.
Too
And
prideful. Yeah.
Exactly. And my question, what I always say is like, when you visit my profile, do you think that I am like cocky or like...
Oh, beyond, yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, of course.
Okay, well, I'm doing something wrong then.
No, not at all. It just looks like a blonde who's happy.
Right.
With a smile.
And I'm not
Yeah.
posting these photos to be like, look at me. I'm posting these photos because it improves my business.
Yeah.
So like once you say this is for my business, it kind of takes away, like a lot of the time I'm giving my clients permission to post a photo of themselves. Like we have this like fear of like we get paralyzed with like people thinking that we're like cocky or like into ourselves.
Yeah.
But like if you're like, well, when I post this workout selfie, I get a private client. Where's the shame in that? You know, it's not.
Yeah, you're making a living.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what we have to do
The
now.
2019 way
Exactly.
and beyond.
Right.
Complete 180.
Yes.
In life, what's important to you? What's most important to you?
My personal relationships, creating like a base of people in my life that I know support me and love me and that I do the same. yeah, my relationships are the most important, especially like with this injury. It's just made me realize how much I rely on being social and interacting and like loving people outside of the internet. So my relationship with my parents, my friends, how I treat my clients is very important to me. Like how I love very intentionally. And obviously like laughing and positivity. Those are the other two things. Like I want to always play. Like it's so important. Like as in theater, it's important to play because that's when you find the gem, but also like in your life. Like I just always want to be laughing and finding the goodness, like and then radiating positivity, because I believe in my heart that like radiating that, it comes back to you tenfold.
It does.
Yeah.
It's so true. Are you a reader? Do you read a lot?
Not really.
Okay.
I always wish I was, but I'm more visual and audio.
Do you listen to audiobooks, or are you a podcast person?
I would
or?
listen to an audio book before I read a book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you listen to podcasts? Or do you have any
sometimes
favies,
I'm the Soul Supper, Oprah.
Oh yeah, Super
Super
Soul
Soul? I don't
Sunday.
know.
Yes.
I don't
Soul.
know.
I mean SSSSS.
It's all it.
Super Soul Sunday. Yeah, that's a good one.
So good.
I love it.
It's so good. I call it Supper Soul. I don't even know what it was called, but I just listened.
Soul Supper.
Soul Supper.
It
Supper.
works. Eat it
Supper
up.
Soul Sunday.
Yeah.
Soul Sunday. Anyway.
Super Soul. Anyway,
but
okay.
she's great, and she does a lot of like, it's about like peacefulness with yourself, enlightenment, positivity, meditation. Like that's kind of the
stuff.
groundwork for being able to navigate all of the stress that comes with creating something that I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have, like, metaphorically speaking, a word or a phrase that you'd put on a billboard for millions of people to see?
Is in like for like life motto, or like,
I mean, it could be a changing billboard.
advertising for myself,
you
or
could-
like what?
No, yeah, it could be a life motto.
Oh my gosh.
I was curious because we've had so many themes today about
Yeah.
self-love and positivity and you know what's important to you, but also like
Yeah.
being able to share it authentically.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, I think like ultimately the thing that comes to me is that you can do it.
You can do it.
Yeah, like
You've done it.
Yeah. And I have so many people that come to me, like people from my school or like younger alumni of Penn State who are like, I'd love to get coffee with you. I just don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. Like I would love to, you know, just connect. And like people who reach out to me that I don't even know, who are like, you're so inspirational, and what you've created is so amazing. Like when they express that to me, I'm like, oh my God, but I almost feel like an imposter because I guess I've just like made this up as I go. But like, you can do it. The only difference between me and you is that I've done it, that I just said yes. So like when there are obstacles, like you can do it. You can do anything. We as humans, we can do anything that we put our minds to. And like, I think what's interesting now with like the acting world, it's like, being a server is like not the only option anymore, which is awesome. You know, you can have a side hustle and it can bring you joy and money.
Yeah,
So, like,
more than
right.
Yeah.
So like more, yes. So like you can do it. You can do, I don't know. You can be authentic.
Yeah.
You can do that. You can post on brand. And you can ultimately succeed in pursuing something that is at your truth and at your core, something that brings you joy.
Well, that's evident with you.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you sharing so much of this with me and
course.
the listeners.
Of course.
Because, yeah. I mean, hey, you know what? There's like people have like two feelings about social media. It's either I need to get rid of it, it's taking my life away, or my soul away.
Yeah.
And then the other one is like, what are you talking about? I'm just putting up what I do.
Right.
So to have
Right.
like a deep dive with you into how you are keeping a soul
Yes.
and
Yes.
a happy smile.
Yeah.
Yet
It's very important.
adhering to the new laws of
Yes.
branding and
Right.
personal promotion.
Well, and in terms of like my advice in the nutshell would be like, it is a necessary tool to help you succeed. So utilize that as a business tool and not as an Instagram, like not as mindless scrolling. Like set a limit. I found that that's really helpful, even though I sometimes go over. But like, set your screen time so that you only have an hour, and then you're more intentional about that anyway. Post things that are authentic to you, but like it is a necessary tool for you to succeed. And so if you just post every day and you utilize the proper hashtags without going overboard, like, your following will eventually grow. Yeah. So just stay consistent in that, and don't let it consume you, but don't get rid of it. You need it to. It is very necessary. It's a necessary evil.
It is a necessary evil.
And also, like, don't take anything that's on there for real, because a lot of it is obviously
filtered.
Fake. Yeah.
Filtered.
Yeah. Like I had this little series that I started. I was in France, and it's called Behind Every Good Instagram is a Good. And then whoever was taking the photo, I would catch people, like, we'd be in France and there's like these gorgeous lavender fields and there's bees everywhere and there's stones everywhere. And these influencers are in heels trying to walk in these stones with bees everywhere. I'm like, this is not what it looks like on Instagram. And when I drove an hour to get there to take that Instagram, I did not think I was going to a bee farm. Like, but we don't tell that story. And then you see that the girl is throwing her dress in the air and she has her hat, and there's her son is taking the photo. Like, it's behind every good Instagram is a good Insta wife or a husband or a son, and so the
stranger.
Right. So embrace the humor in that too, because a lot of it is fake.
Yeah. That's so true. Where can we find you on social media?
You can find me at Stephanie Cowan is my handle. Cowan. And then you can also find some of my work on my website at www.theblondewiththesmile.com. And then I think that's it. It's funny. We talked all about social, but I'm not a Twitter. I'm more about the photos.
Well, I mean, it's the most used app on the
yeah
on the phone,
right,
so it's
right.
It's a good use of it. Is there anything else you want to add before we really wrap up here today?
No, I think I'm good. I've talked a lot. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, this is super educational, and I really
Awesome.
appreciate you actually sharing the insides.
Right.
And we didn't just keep it on the surface. We actually went to the thing.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate
Of course.
that.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Stephanie Cowan.
You've been listening to Entertainment X, the podcast. You can follow Entertainment X on Instagram at _EntertainmentX_. If you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join Clay next week for another curiosity conversation on Entertainment X. Thank you for listening.